Hey everyone. Just when you thought you figured you'd covered all the bases as far as how many aspects and how many ways the government's going to use your your yearning for the legalization of marijuana in Canada. And I recognize there are lots of people in this country, especially a lot of the young people. I feel bad that you weren't taught and have some street smarts. You obviously weren't around people that could inform you probably about the perils and the dangers of getting government involved in anything to do in your personal life or anything that you consume or yeah, anything basically. But I already knew instinctively how that would play out as soon as I recognized that the Liberal government, was going to use the popularity of the people of Canada. I think it was at the time it was well over 50%. I think it was like 57%. So the majority of the Canadian population was looking in some way to end the drug war, right? Now legalization is how the government presented it, but what all people really want is just stop fucking with people that smoke, consume, cultivate, grow, or distribute, sell a plant that people, it's all done voluntarily. So whether you're the grower, right, or the consumer, everything that happens along that whole process is done voluntarily. There's no victims, right? There's no crimes committed from someone growing a plant or even a person taking that upon themselves and growing plants in their backyard and consuming them, smoking a plant. But like I said, we all know that it's the minute you get a bunch of control freaks and sociopaths in on the action. Well, I mean, first and foremost, the biggest thing government's going to look at, and that's why they made that part of their platform, right, is the dollar signs. Look at the money. Now they can tax it. And I've said in past videos, I think this is like my fifth or sixth videos covering this topic because I just can't understand how crazy the Canadian people were as far as trying to. I guess they were utopian, right? And thought government, like that's the thing. People talk about libertarians and stuff that, oh, you have a utopian mentality or something. Well, you fuckers thought that giving control over the marijuana industry to a bunch of sociopaths and control freaks was a good idea. So, all right. Who's a little bit more out of a touch, a little bit more utopian, like a sense of something there's no correlation there if you look through historical facts or precedent, right? Alcohol, cigarettes, right? Think of all the other time you put government in control of something, insurance or anything, and it's going to get expensive, more monopolized, more. There's not even one example that anyone could actually point to and say how it's ever worked good for the government to take over any industry. Good for the consumer or the people, right? Good for certain special interest groups or corporations, for sure, but not for the most people. But in addition to all the things, like as far as like now they're going to, and I covered in another video, now they're going to make the testing of marijuana impaired driving, right? That's their big thing. And even with Mad Canada now, that's their big lobbying efforts now is I guess they've ruined enough people that had a few drinks and drove their vehicle. They've ruined enough of those people's lives that there's very few of them left to destroy. So now they've moved on to a whole new cohort of people, and that's the people that smoke and drive. But this is the thing about with smoking and driving, just like with alcohol too, you could have consumed it hours before, but as far as marijuana is concerned, it might have even been days before because it'll stay in your system for long stretches, long periods of time. So you might have even smoked marijuana on the weekend and then go to work on Monday, or maybe had a day or two in between, but they'll still, if they tested you, right, which is kind of what I'm getting to at with this article on this out of CBC News Politics, is if you had to, and as a truck driver, I'm telling you someone that I know this firsthand, I have this knowledge firsthand. When I drove truck, and I have smoked marijuana in my life, but you couldn't even take the chance of smoking marijuana. When I was a truck driver, and I did it for 8.5 years, you couldn't even take the chance of smoking marijuana because there was random testing, right? For any truck driving outfit that had more than, I forget what the exact number was, but if you had more than a certain amount of employees, there was mandatory drug testing, and especially if you crossed into the U.S. and stuff, right? So there was randomized drug testing. And even just to be gainfully employed, drug testing is one of the prerequisites for you to be gainfully employed, right? But now we're seeing what they're talking about now is employers want Ottawa's help to deal with marijuana smokers or smoking workers, right? So like I say, Trying to get government involved in anything was a really, really, really bad idea. Stupid. And for the ignorant people, just bad. Just you should have done that extra work, put that extra effort in to think about what are you really going for here. You know, you should have been listening to the people that were warning and telling you that don't do this. But I mean, we're a little late in the game now. But here's exactly what's going to be the consequences and the ramifications for doing so. Lack of hard science on marijuana impairment and testing raises concerns among employers over safety. So more stoned workers will be showing up in Canada's workplace with the coming legalization of marijuana, but companies have few tools to cope with potential safety risks. But as we all know, I mean, even just that first couple of sentences, if you smoke marijuana now, like if you're a marijuana smoker, I can't imagine, there might be a few, but I can't imagine anyone, because like I said, I've been alive for 46 years in this country, so I know I've been out and around. Like, yeah, you know, lots of people know me. I've been out and around a lot of places, big urban centers, rural communities. I don't know anyone that's a marijuana smoker that don't do it now, even though they're gainfully employed at this particular time. It's not like they're waiting for the government to legalize it, okay? Believe it or not, shocking revelation, people are actually smoking marijuana in Canada. Whoa! And they're not waiting for legalization to happen. Imagine that. So, what would change? Nothing's going to change. Other than the fact that now your employer, before legalization or the pretense of legalization, even come to the forefront or even come to being a generally accepted thing that's going to happen in Canada, is employers, there's no laws on the book where they can, right, ask you to submit to a piss test to be gainfully employed. Now, once they legalize marijuana, well, here we go. They're already starting into it. That's the message from some employers who say they've received no assurances from Ottawa so far that the new pot regime will include workplace safeguards. We're caught in a potential catch-22. How do you protect the worker and those around them as well as deal with the legalized marijuana? Legalized marijuana, said Cameron McGilvery, president of Enform, a Calgary-based oil and gas safety group. It is a pressing concern for the industry because of the potential catastrophic impacts of somebody doing a critical safety job when they're impaired. But like I said, those people are doing it right now. So, you know, just like if someone turned away to look towards something and said, hey, look over there. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen as a result of people doing things that you might not agree with. But using government, like, what, fines, criminalization, you're not going to prevent people from being people. People are going to be people, and they're going to do what they want to do regardless of political edicts or mandates. So this is already, obviously, people that smoke marijuana, but if it's not a big pressing concern right now, otherwise you would see there would be a rampant increase. If you saw there was like a rampant increase in recent decades or so in the amount of workplace injuries or deaths as a result of smoking marijuana, then I could see where you could, but have you heard of that? No one in the media, no one has ever presented any facts to suggest that would be a reality. And we know that's not the case because, like I said, we live in the real world. So we know that's not the case. You know people that smoke marijuana, even when they drive or they go to work, you know they're not being the ones that are causing any harm or being a detriment, right? Might be a little lazy. That's potential, depending on the type of marijuana they're smoking. But that would probably be it. But that would only be even that. That would be, listen, some people can be lazy for many different reasons, right? So once again, all this is showing time and time again is getting government involved is just going to create more bureaucracy, more hardships, more pain, more anguish, maybe fines, maybe a lot more people. I mean, think about it. If you have to be required to take a drug test to be gainfully employed, I know there's going to be a whole lot of people that, you know, just won't be willing to give up the dope, right? And even if you did it long enough just to get gainfully employed, if there's randomized testing, are you going to willing to forego having any marijuana? Because you know that would literally mean you would not be able to smoke marijuana at all. Not on your off time, not on the weekends, because like I said, it stays in your system. So if they can test you, they'll be able to fire you for consuming something even though it had nothing to do with your workplace. The Liberal government is expected to introduce legislation by the summer making recreational marijuana legal, at a time when the science of detecting and measuring impairment is incomplete. Marijuana is not a new arrival in the workplace, and over the last decade, the legalization of medical marijuana has already made cannabis a more frequent job-related concern. Well, I haven't heard anything, right? If it was a major concern, where's all the media reports about it? Obviously, there's not. So, like I said, they're using political dialogue. You know, there might have been something that they might have found an incident here or there, so they're not completely lying. Like I say, the media finds a way to skirt. They're not going to be honest with you, and they're going to skirt that line continuously as long as it fits in their dialogue and their narrative. Full legalization, however, is expected to boost the number of employee users. That's based on spikes in the number of users in Colorado and Washington after recreational pot was made legal there. Well, no, they were all probably doing the marijuana prior. It's just that if you weren't testing them, right? So this is the thing with all these stupid things every time they come out. Same with drinking and driving. Well, when you're not out testing all the time, it seems like the numbers are fairly low. And obviously, it's not a detriment to the public when you see that those numbers are low. But I mean, if you criminalize something, of course you're going to increase the amount of people that now, right? Right? Or if you start testing people, but you're not changing the reality, you're just changing the way you measure it. So the reality is going to continue to be the same. People are going to be people. The only thing you're doing is now you've created a larger umbrella, a larger platform where you can criminalize and punish and penalize more people. It's not that their habits, patterns, or decisions have changed. Most people do not base their decisions on government edicts, and most people recognize and realize that. Unless it's something that you know that there's no way you can avoid, right? In reality, none of this, all these workplaces that are now going to be looking to use mandates and government edicts as a means to test their employees for gainful employment, make sure they haven't smoked or they don't consume marijuana. I think it's going to backfire. I think it's going to be a detriment for not just the employees, but for the employers as well, because you're going to have a lot smaller pool of people to choose from, right? And they're not going to be the people, that's the thing. Just because people smoke marijuana, that's the pretense too, that just because you consume marijuana, that makes you a less productive employee. I don't see any correlation with that, and there is no correlation with that. There's no studies that have ever proven or shown that to be a reality in any way, shape, or form. So once again, it's just arbitrary edicts, arbitrary numbers, arbitrary measurements and concepts to once again create more hardships for people that are consuming, smoking. A lot of the time it's just to deal with their own personal issues or hardships that they may have in their life, because pot users, a lot of them, it's a form of self-medicating. So once again, you're looking at penalizing, punishing, and potentially criminalizing and causing people to lose their incomes and be gainfully employed because they're self-medicating. How do you think that's going to help or benefit anyone? I don't see how it benefits anyone in Canada, right? And it won't. It'll be proven out in the long run game. It'll be proven out in the end. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.